Hello, everyone. Welcome back to The Reason We Learn and our CommonCore Diva deep dive for this month, I guess it would be. Have with me our CommonCore Diva, Lynn Taylor, and we're going to be talking about schools and mental health today. Before we get started, Lynn has a whole stack of stuff, like she, sorry, Rush, like she usually does. But before we dive into the particulars, I have a couple of questions for anyone in the audience really, but especially parents. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself, why the government would be interested at all in anyone's mental health, least of all your child's? Like and do you really want the government assessing them, diagnosing them, treating them for mental health issues out of your sight? And without your permission, but simply by virtue of the fact that your kid is in a school that they run or regulate. Just have you ever stopped to wonder like how you'd feel about that and whether that's an appropriate use of government power, never mind your taxpayer dollars. And finally, I would love for you to think about as we talk, what the implications are of the government surveilling your child's mental well-being, starting at the youngest age and then ongoing for 13 years. Like what kind of data would they be collecting on your child? How might they use that data now or in the future? What kind of decisions might they be able to make and power might they be able to exert over your child once they're an adult, a college student, who knows what, based on a mental health history that they will now have easy access to? Forget HIPAA, forget privacy. The government's going to know because the government will also have decided and diagnosed and treated and so on. They're going to know everything about what went on with that. So think of the long-term implications for other types of enforcement of things, red flag laws, for example, or who knows what, your employer might get whatever. So think about that, because I think sometimes the story they tell us about how you have to be safe and well and feel good and feel happy and not have any kind of trauma and not have any kind of problems going on at home that would affect your mental health before you can learn is an easy sell for people. And they don't think about, is that even true? And I would ask you to think about whether or not that's true. They're presenting it to you as a foregone conclusion. One needs to feel certain ways before one can learn. And they don't think about the potential negative side effects of immersing small children in the most negative of their emotions and discussing them and not letting strangers into their headspace versus the potential upside benefit of having learning be an actual distraction from that or even a tool for treatment. So speaking only for myself, maybe some of you in the audience can relate. I had a troubled childhood. I had parents who were, somewhat unstable. I didn't get the emotional sustenance I needed. If somebody had gone into my head, they might have said, oh, she's troubled, she's depressed, whatever. School was a haven for that, even with the bullying that I got from peers. Being able to immerse myself in reading and doing assignments and having a place to go and doing stuff that was getting me out of my head actually helped. It was a kind of respite from other troubles. And so that, coupled with the fact that we know children in war-torn areas can learn, we know kids in deep poverty can learn, we know throughout history, even runaway slaves like Frederick Douglass managed to teach themselves to read. The premise that a child can't learn unless a child is mentally well, and that the government gets to decide what that means, what mentally well means, is false. So anyway, I will stop speaking now, and it's Lynn's turn.
No, you said it very, very well. And here's the thing: we've got governments that are deciding, okay, like you said, who's well, who's not, what they need, how parents should parent, how cities should run, and a lot of this is just none of their business. A lot of this is unconstitutional. In fact, I think everything that we're going to talk about today is absolutely unconstitutional because our mental health was never written into our state constitutions or our national one. Just
That's right.
education wasn't either. Labor wasn't. There are so many things that were not put in our constitution, but yet our government has become this Neanderthal monster that's just running every bit of our lives and telling us, oh, this is how you're going to look, this is how you're going to feel. And if you don't do it our way, you're not going to get anywhere.
Right. And it is,
That's not freedom.
it doesn't, even if you agreed with them, and let's say some of you do, let's say somebody said, well, Deb, I disagree with you. I think that it is really important for children to, not have a mental illness problem or not have any kind of mental disturbance whatsoever, if they're to thrive in life. I mean, in general, I might agree with you that certainly we would love for people to have, support for any kind of mental health problems that they're having. But what we're saying is, why does it then follow it should be outside the realm of the family, the private, the family? And if you're going to say, if your only answer is because some parents won't do it or because some people can't afford it, that is not a justification for the government taking it over at all for even those people, but certainly not for all people. So it doesn't matter whether you agree the government is is the right, or sorry, not the government's the right group to do it. But if you agree that mental health is super important or not, it's not the government's purview. And
Right.
when we say it's not written into the Constitution, remember the Constitution was written to limit government's power, not yours.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the fact that it wasn't in there doesn't mean they have the power. In fact, there are things in there about due process and the Fourth Amendment protecting you from search and seizure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, without probable cause. And you might say, well, there's probable cause if a child is misbehaving. Whatever. The school has all the authority of the government to say you're misbehaving, follow the rules, and here's a consequence if you don't. They certainly have that authority. They don't then get to say, and now we're going to search for the reasons why.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
probable cause to go into your private life. It's only probable cause within the building, within their institution to say, you have misbehaved, ergo, you've committed this little offense in this realm, and here's the punishment. They don't get to go on a witch hunt or a fishing expedition into your life outside of their institution to find out why you're behaving a certain way in the institution. They're likely going to be wrong. It's not their purview. And that's where your Fourth Amendment rights kick in. They don't have any kind of authority to do that. Certainly not blanket across the board to every child by default. So your constitutional rights are being violated, and everything we're going to show you, like Lynn said, is going to substantiate that.
Well, let's also consider this. I mean, look at, okay, if you have someone with mental health issues, look at the number of years they're misdiagnosed with this, or this, and then along with it comes all these treatments that sometimes include psychotropic drugs. I don't know if I said that right or not. I always trip on that word. The heavy duty medications that give side effects that turn them into zombies or side effects that turn them into something that they're not. And a lot of the reasons why some of them end up not taking the medicine is because they want to feel
That's
like
right.
themselves. And the government doesn't get to define what thriving is, because if you have someone with mental health, their thriving is going to look totally different than someone else's who is not dealing with that same issue. So we cannot put a blanket definition on what it means for Johnny and Susie to thrive.
No.
That is like success. Success is not always a lot of money in your bank account.
Or going to college.
Right.
Or any of the
But
other things that the government and the schools are saying it is.
right, but between the government hype, the propaganda, and then the culture garbage that results of it, we've been convinced, well, so and so has this going on, so therefore they must be blah blah, and here's
Right.
what we need to do.
That's
Do
right.
you ever really listen to what the person is saying? And how can you do this to a 5 year old when a 5 year old is meant to fidget and to squirm and to do all these things? No, we've got a 5 year old now on ADHD medication, which has been proven long term to do more damage than it does
That's
good.
right. Well, and honestly, not only who are they to define thriving
Right.
for every single child, like to make a rubric for thriving. It's absurd on
Mm-hmm.
its face. But in addition, mental health is still very poorly understood. It
Mm-hmm.
is at best an emerging field and, at worst pseudoscience. The only mental health conditions we can safely say, or, able to be scientifically diagnosed are those that have a chemical component or a brain scan shows something fundamentally different. You have things like schizophrenia. You have things like certain kinds of bipolar disorder that might, through empirical evidence, they respond to certain medications very, very well. So we know there's a chemical imbalance. But
Yep.
we are talking a tiny fraction of the things that get classified as a mental health issue, disorder, or whatever. And in fact, the DSM's most recent edition has added things like grief. Like if you're still mourning someone you loved who died years later, they're calling that a kind of mental health condition as opposed to just life. So they're pathologizing more aspects of normal human existence, which is imperfect, which is unfair, which has, all kinds of things that happen. And rather than focusing on, overcoming and moving on in the other realms of your life by getting kids into this kind of an analysis program and evaluation and drugging, whatever, they're making the most important thing about a child any form of mental discomfort.
Well,
And
stubborn
haven't
has
we
been.
already seen, Lynn, that doing that is creating fragile, neurotic, narcissistic young adults
Yeah.
who identify with these mental illnesses? They don't just say, well, I have to work on this and I'm going to get well someday, whatever. It's like, I'm a this.
There's a
I
label.
have this,
There's a
and this
label.
wrong with me. And it becomes an identity, just like their gender, their race, their, religion, whatever. They add it to the long list of their hyphenated bio on social media. And heaven forbid you suggest that maybe they take accountability for the behavior that is less than wonderful, or the outcomes that make them dependent. I can't hold a job. It's too much anxiety. We're giving them more and more excuses to be dependent on who? Oh, right. The state.
Government.
But no, couldn't possibly be a conflict of interest at all.
No, it really couldn't. I'll talk about the latest DSM. Stubborn is now called defiance disorder. Now, I am a very stubborn person. I always have been. You can ask my brothers how much I got in trouble with my parents over the fact of how stubborn I was. Now, I knew in school not to display that so much, but I would. But the teachers ignored it. They did not gratify it. They did not sit there and go, oh, well, Lynn, you need to have this medication. You need to be on this therapy. Heaven forbid someone is like that today in school, because you'd be labeled defiance disorder. And here's your treatment plan. Here's when you start taking your medicine, and we'll see you back in a month.
Oh, how about shyness? You can't be shy anymore. That's a disorder. That's
Or if you like
there's something wrong with
tidy,
you. I mean,
if you like things neat and tidy, OCD.
Yeah, the government has even decided which personalities are acceptable, socially acceptable, and contribute to thriving. So if you're an introvert, if you're shy, if you don't really want to have a lot of friends, even if you're not super shy or an introvert, you just perfectly content to go to school, do your thing, and then not really be friends with anybody. Yes, I'm speaking about myself. Or have very few friends because, you don't suffer fools gladly, or whatever your issue is. That's not okay. You're not a team player. So they're turning schools into, like, imagine the worst possible office situation you've ever been in, where if you didn't go to lunch with everybody, you were called into HR to discuss your ability to be a team player.
Why aren't you congregating? Why aren't you
coming to the team building sessions? I thought those were optional. Well, right. Or do you remember the movie Office Space, where Jennifer Aniston is a waitress at this sort of TGI Fridays like restaurant, and they wear these buttons all over their suspenders? It's called flair. And so the manager keeps talking to her, because I want to talk to you about your flair. And she says, what? I've got it on, I've got the pieces. I'm supposed to have like 20 pieces of flair or whatever. He says, yeah, but you're doing the minimum. You're just doing the minimum. Do you really want to do the minimum? And then he points to another employee who's got like covered in buttons. Look at him. He goes beyond the minimum, and he's like all goofy and acting out. Totally different personality. don't you want to be? She says, so more flair? I should put more flair? Well, I mean, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just asking, do you really just want to do the minimum? This is what they're doing to 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, by assessing them and surveilling them constantly about their feelings. How are you having a good day? You're not having a good day. So-and-so's having a good day. Are you having a good, like, look at this picture of a person having a good day. Have you seen those? Where the like feelings cards and they're showing them, like, this is what happiness looks like. And it's somebody
Mm-hmm.
like this. And I'm sitting there thinking, I remember being absolutely in bliss reading a book in school once, like just
Mm-hmm.
totally focused reading this
Mm-hmm.
book. But because my resting face is not like
Yeah.
it's kind of more like this.
Yeah.
I was happy as could possibly be. But I would get asked all the time, like, "Are you okay? Are you okay? You seem not okay." And I'm like, "I'm absolutely fine until you started asking me if I was okay."
Yeah.
That's what they're doing to the children.
Well, let me point out one thing. The government is getting away with a lot of this as far as directing the schools under the label guidance. Oh, we're by law, we can't really tell you what to do, but oh yeah, by law, we put in all these mandates and all this guidance and technical assistance, and that's how they're bringing
We
it
just
in.
want to talk to you about your flair. I mean, it's just guidance.
You got to dress it
You don't
up.
have to do it, but do you really want to not do it?
Oh,
Really?
because if you don't, you won't get the funding.
Yeah, well, because what's going to happen is then over time, they'll
Hmm.
evaluate the schools on the basis of how much they followed the guidance. And God forbid you have other problems that have nothing to do with the guidance or not the guidance or mental health or not mental health. They could have to do with any number of factors, many of which might be totally out of your control, not even
Hmm.
funding.
Hmm.
Just the composition of the student body or the composition of the faculty, and it's going to be if you'd only listen to us about the guidance.
Yeah, had your chance, muffed it.
Also, government always starts off with things being optional until they're
For
not.
the other purposes. If you look at enough congressional bills, it'll be blah, 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 and other purposes. That is the cover your backside moment that the Congress uses to say, oh, we know we really can't do this, but we're doing it anyway.
That's right. And
Okay.
most Americans are busy, going about their lives, not thinking about it. And then these things happen. You and I see it. We try to bring it to people's
Mhm.
attention. They miss it. They don't see it. They don't listen, whatever. And then we'll say, you're being forced. This is compulsory. This is bad. This is, a violation of rights. Oh, come on. Don't you think you're exaggerating? We're not being forced to do anything. And then I just say, can you say no? Do you have the option to opt out and say, I don't want to do that? I don't want my kid to do that. I don't want to be any part of this at all. I want to leave. And can I also not be compelled to pay for it? And the answer is no. So that's a little thing I call force. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah. Well,
All right. What should we look at
should
first?
let them see everything that we have for them today?
Oh,
Okay, we want to
yes.
start off with our newly elected governor here in the state of North Carolina, Governor Stein. He has announced a new council on student safety and well-being. Again, who's defining what the well-being is? Who's defining what the safety is? And is it always going to have to be the same across the board? Because while our newly elected governor has trotted this out, he's not the only governor.
No.
He's not the only uh, willing player in this. We have at least 25 other states, Deb, who are doing this. But what this particular release says in the body of it, hang on just a second. North Carolina's children are our future, and it's crucial that they grow and learn in a safe environment that sets them on the right trajectory to thrive, said the governor. I'm
Okay.
proud to,
I have to stop you right there.
yes,
I'm
ma'am.
already like the word nerd in me is saying, first of all, let's
Yep.
look at this. Okay. North Carolina's children. They're not North Carolina's children. They are
Nope.
not North Carolina. They don't belong to North Carolina. They don't.
Right.
They live here. Their parents live here. That might be
Hmm.
temporary. They don't belong to the state. So let's be very clear. Then,
Thank you.
so whose future? Our future? No, they're their own future. All right.
Hmm.
Then it's crucial. So right away, they're framing it as this is an existential
Uh-huh.
situation that they
Exactly.
grow and learn in a safe environment. And here's the key: I don't think anyone would, they put something very truthful that no one would dispute. We don't want them to be in danger. Okay. But safe environment, there's the key. They're inextricably linked. You will not be safe. Your child will not be in a safe environment if it's not one that sets them on, here we go, the right trajectory. According to whom? The government. So the government has just told you they own your kids, that the kids' future even belongs to them, that safety equals whatever they define as the right trajectory for whatever they define as thrive. So this entire first sentence, even the first half of the sentence, is telling you in no uncertain terms, your children belong to us.
Yeah, but when you read it, unless you really understand, like you just explained, that's going to sound lovely.
Of course,
a lot of people are going to read that. Oh, that's a good thing.
And those they put in things that people are concerned about, like school safety and cell phones. So immediately what parents are doing is saying, yeah, those cell phones cause a lot of distraction problem and then fights, and they're putting it in. Oh, and school safety is a problem. We don't want school shootings, whatever. So in other words, everyone's going to read that and put it through the lens of their worst fear, of their individual fear and their individual perception of what school safety means, of what the danger of cell phones. But they're counting on that. They're counting on you projecting into what they're doing, whatever your meaning is, and not picking up on the not so subtle fact that your meaning is irrelevant. They're the ones defining it.
Right. Well, let's listen to a little bit more of this press release. I am proud to establish this council of educators, mental health professionals, and law enforcement to identify ways to better keep our classrooms safe and our children healthy.
Again with the hour. And they're going to identify the ways. You know who's missing from the council? Who's missing? There's no parents. And honestly, I wouldn't like it much better if there were. I'm not suggesting to you that add parents equals okay. It doesn't, because we know they'd be tokens and they wouldn't be listened to. But it is notable that they're not in there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But this thing goes on and on to tell you that the council will work across
ensuring the safety of our students is not up for debate. No, I'm sorry, Governor Stein. Everything is up for debate. This is the United States of America. And if you're going to use a word called ensuring in front of safety, that implies some application of state power, because you can't ensure anything when individual choice is involved. So if you're going to ensure the safety and you're saying it's not up for debate, it absolutely is up for debate. Not only defining what safety is, but what your methods are for achieving
look at the next part. It's a fundamental responsibility of our state government. No, it is not it's fundamental in the fact that that's what government should have as far as the rights, fundamental, because those can be changed. Inherent is what a parent is. So that's an inherent right. They can't mess with those, or they're not supposed to. But it's a fundamental responsibility of our state government. Where in the state constitution does it say it's a fundamental responsibility to make sure that our students are well, healthy, and safe? It does say that the state has the state is guaranteeing that every child has access to a state-led education, but you know what?
But even that's a violation of our constitutional rights. So
Yep, there you go. Because it's not a state-led. It's not a state-led education.
This is insidious. This is insidious, Lynn, because when you accept these premises, I mean any and all definition of what safety looks like and application of power to achieve it. So if they decide, for example, that the only way to guarantee the safety of these students is to quite literally take the child away from you, mom and dad, they can and will do that. They'll use this kind of an argument. You can't let this argument go unchallenged at the most basic level. Even if you think, well, but they just mean they don't want fights in school. I don't care. The language is written by lawyers. He's a lawyer. Everybody who looked over this article and had looked over his little thing to put this together is a lawyer. They know perfectly well what they're doing. They're setting precedent to be able to apply power to do whatever the hell they want to your kid in the name of safety, or to you. Up to and including taking custody of your child, which they already do without
Mm-hmm.
thinking about it when your kid is not in the school. But now they're saying, if you don't go along with this, imagine this, they define health and safety and all these things related to mental health, and you challenge it. And you say, you know what? No, I don't want my kid assessed by you. I don't want them taking these drugs. You're denying treatment. You're imperiling your poor child. You are a danger to your child because you will not go along with what is going to make them safe and healthy. Therefore, you're dangerous. Therefore, we have to take the child away. If you think I'm insane, go look at how it's already been done. It's
Yeah.
already been done in this and pretty much every other state for other lesser reasons. You didn't feed
Oh,
the
yeah.
kid what they thought you should have fed them. You didn't have the clothes that you thought that they should have or whatever. Kids have been taken away for the smallest reasons. And then ironically, kids that have come in with evidence of abuse, all kinds of stuff, or who have been abused in school, nobody does anything.
Yep.
People are reporting it. People are saying this is a problem. Remember the boy that was rescued from that house of horrors in whatever state that was? And there was, people told the authorities there's something going on and they didn't do anything. Okay. So it tends to be backwards.
Yeah,
They
it does.
leave kids to languish in horrible situations, and the kids who are perfectly loving parents who just want to be in charge of their own upbringing, oh, well, you're a problem, which puts the lie to the whole program. The program is
Mm-hmm.
not about protecting the children. It's about getting more control for the government.
Right. Let's go on. Governor Stein's advisory council will work across the state agencies with both state and local leaders to propose and implement policies and solutions that will improve student safety and well-being. It will advance recommendations, provide guidance to state agencies, work with local communities, and share best practices. The council's first priority is going to be working with the General Assembly to support school systems in implementing policies that will make classrooms cell phone free. That's our most impending doom, a classroom with cell phones. Okay, you brought it up on one of our shows about the fact that it wasn't so much about having the cell phone, that it was a distraction to learning. It was removing evidence of things that could sometimes happen. Maybe a student's being inappropriate with another student. Maybe a teacher's being inappropriate with another student. You take the cell phones, you remove the evidence.
That's right.
That's first. That's First Amendment violation.
And it's also offloading the responsibility to maintain order and discipline in the classroom onto the parents and the child. You have to give up your ability to communicate with the outside world, your ability to document what's happening to you in what's effectively a day prison, um, and or to protect your own individual safety in the event of an emergency, and that could be anything from a fire to a shooting. Okay,
Yeah.
we're going to remove that from you because we aren't going. We can't keep kids on task. We can't keep discipline and order. We're not willing to enforce those things. We're not willing to use the authority and power that we legitimately have to maintain
Mm-hmm.
order. We're going to make you responsible. That it's your fault. Again, with the due process violation,
Mm-hmm.
we've adjudicated you all guilty of breaking school rules and being disrespectful with phones and all this kind of stuff. So we're going to take away the phones. Now, they're not going to go to individual kids who are being disruptive. They're doing it
Right.
to everyone. The way to think about this, folks, is if the government had its way, and right now it's only one's political side, but I promise you they'd all love to have this. The only reason the
Oh yeah.
Republicans aren't coming for your guns is that it still serves them well in election campaign season. But they would love nothing more than to take away guns on the basis of an identical argument. Some people abuse it. Some people don't do things right. Some people break the law.
But
Therefore,
not
we're going to,
everyone. But this looks you into the assumption that you do. And North
that's right.
Carolina is not the only state that's going after the cell phones. South Carolina has a Republican governor. They, I think, have already passed their bill to limit cell phones. And, I was speaking down there back in March, and we brought this up, and it was like, no, you need to look at the other side. Let's say Johnny or Susie's throwing up. They need to go home. They need to call mom and dad. Well, they can't because they don't have their cell phone.
That's right.
Yeah. So anyway, but we're not going to just pick on Governor Stein. We're going to go to our next article, which is from Future Ed, I believe it is, and it's talking about education in Governor's 2025 State of the state addresses. And it goes on to tell you that future ed analyzed speeches,
Is this the
from
one?
40, yes,
Okay.
yeah. They analyzed speeches from 41 governors to identify states' education agendas for the coming year, highlighting common themes, bipartisan commitments, and partisan divides. And across the party lines, governors remain committed to investing in public education, uh, with many proposing increased K through 12 funding in efforts to modernize school finance formulas to better support high need students. Oh boy. They go on to tell you that they want to make proposing new steps to directly improve student learning, raising academic standards, strengthening accountability. Well, that means we're going to continue to use the Fed-led ed. We're going to continue to make more testing because that's what accountability is. These topics have not been addressed. All right, it goes on to tell you, oh, well, we want new curriculum initiatives. Well, good luck with that, particularly in literacy. Well, they're addressing that the fact that our children are graduating and they cannot read. That's not the student's fault. That is not the student's fault. That is the teachers. That is the curriculum. It's school choice is also a theme among this. Student well-being. Oh, let's not forget this one. One of the most important topics this year was the student well-being with a focus on mental health, technology use, school meals, and safety. While youth mental health remains a top concern, highlighted by 15 governors, many are shifting from traditional investments in counseling and school-based services to restrictions on cell phones and social media. Oh, that's really, really going to solve the problem? Concerns over technology's impact on student mental health are growing. Arkansas's Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders noted in her annual address. How is this all the cell phone's fault?
Unbelievable.
But yeah, so again, Stein is a Democrat, Huckabee is not, or Sanders is not. So it doesn't. You
Scott
can't
is
say, oh,
not, I
yeah,
mean,
you
this
can't.
is
You can't throw. Oh well, this is just a party problem. No, it is not. It is. It is absolutely not. It is a we the people are tired of getting so much junk from the government about we can't be we can't be who we are. We have to have some sort of like they're using the word guidance. Did you notice they used that in there too? Oh, we're going to implement policies and provide guidance because after all, you're too stupid to think your way out of paper bag, mom and dad. So we're going to come
well,
alongside you and we're going to do that for you.
first of all, this is not scientific in the least. To say for Sarah Huckabee Sanders to say suicide rates among teens have tripled, self-harm among girls has risen by nearly 200%, and depression among teenagers has increased by 150%. The culprit is clear. Unrestricted access to phones and social media. No. That there's the culprit is clear because you said so. Is that how it works? Now, I'm not sitting here making the argument that cell phones are completely benign, that they can't be used for bad purposes, that social media is like totally fine for kids to spend hours on it. But you know what's missing from this? Any form of accountability on the part of the adults, be they the parents
Mm-hmm,
or the schools. Like you said, if
mm-hmm,
schools are not maintaining discipline and order in the classroom, if they are not keeping the kids learning and teaching them to read in the early grades such that by the later grades they're not bored out of their mind and floundering in terms of reading, so there's nothing to do in class because they're miserable and they don't know anything.
mm-hmm,
If they refuse to discipline bullies in a real way, everything is restorative justice, we're going to have a conversation, have a bag of chips, then where do you think kids retreat to? Where do they retreat to when they have nothing else going on? They have nothing else to occupy their minds. They're going to look for that dopamine hit on the phone. And then now add the parents who give them the unrestricted use, which, by the way, many parents feel like they're forced to do because so many teachers put everything on technology. So for the kid to even know
mm-hmm.
what's going on in their assignments, they have to use a tablet or a computer or a phone. So it's
Right.
not like they're going into low tech schools and bringing their phones. They're going into tech heavy schools where everything is being done electronically. And some teachers are even using social media to communicate with
Mm-hmm,
their children. And then they're
mm-hmm,
not having any accountability for these adults and saying it's on the kids, take away the phones from the kids, as opposed to saying, hey, mom and dad, maybe don't do this. You know, that there are programs out there like Screenagers where the school can host a movie for parents and teens to come and watch about the dangers of social media. Do you think schools are availing themselves of these programs? No, they already exist.
Nope.
So instead, we're just going to take this heavy-handed, the culprit is clear. It's the phones.
Yeah, it's all the phone. Yeah.
The phone. I will
Like
grant you, the kids spend too
Ugh.
much time on their phones typically, but
Right.
I will not concede that that is a single cause of this problem.
Absolutely. Well, let's look at the next one, because this is the one half owner of the Common Core state standards, which are still very much in force. This is the National Governors Association is our next one. And
So this
it
was the one
also
I brought up by mistake. This was this one,
yeah,
right?
that's okay.
Okay.
But it's this one. But we're gonna just read the topics, because let's remember they still own that copyright. That copyright has not expired. It's still in place. K through 12 funding. Oh yes, let's put money before people always. Workforce development and career and technical education. Oh yes, at least 33 governors want to do that. I pump that up. Teacher workforce. Oh yes. Academic achievement. Okay. What's next? Oh, school choice. Yummy. Early child
Fugue.
care, early care and education. Well, early care is not really up to the government. Mental and physical health. Here we go. At least 21 governors have addressed the physical, mental, and behavioral health of students. Governor Kemp of Georgia praised the funding of behavioral and mental health programs that enabled response to the tragic
Republican.
shooting at Appalachian High School in 2024. In New York, the governor there discussed her Unplug and Play initiative. Oh boy. And then we have North Dakota's governor, then cell phones follow mental health. Ooh, and that's it. So they're so concerned about it. Why is it next to last in their list?
Well, it's not even that, Lynn. I would really love to put this in front of Thomas Jefferson or George Washington or geez, even Alexander, Mr. Big Government Hamilton, and put this list in front of them, sort of bring it back in some kind of a time machine and be like, sirs, is this what you had in mind when you said that those powers not relegated to the federal government were in the states, and like that this was some of the powers you thought that would be like appropriate for them to have? And I just can't help but feel like their jaws would be on the floor and they would be saying the King George III was not this tyrannical, was not this up in our business.
Right, absolutely. Well, let's move to our next one. Now, the reason I included this in our information, and everybody will have access to all this, is because I was asking the question, well, where else in America is this going on? And this is what I got. Now, CDW is a huge technical corporation. So here they're talking about holistic school safety to secure an environment. Again, that goes back to what you said earlier. Due to devastating incidents of school violence, schools must create a comprehensive plan that addresses all areas of school safety, including physical security, cybersecurity, social and emotional learning, and prevention. Should we discuss how awful social and emotional learning is? I mean, we've done several shows on it.
Oh my God.
Oh goodness. Okay, so here are the 4 pillars of school safety as this company is reporting. Physical safety, cybersecurity, social and emotional learning, and prevention. By implementing this holistic strategy, administrators can be proactive, mitigating the risk of physical and cyber threats and ensuring the safety and security of K through 12 schools. Oh my goodness. So social and emotional learning is number 3. Here's what they say about it. Students grapple with a myriad of stressors that affect their mental health. Social and emotional well-being is not achieved through one-off programs, but as a core part of the curriculum. Students need a foundation in social and emotional learning as much as they need mathematics or literature. SEL programs that focus on early intervention promote resilience and teach behavior regulation and can become and help students navigate complexities of the human spirit for the rest of their lives. These programs instill the coping mechanisms that are as vital to a child's development as any academic knowledge. Oh, the BS and horse hockey in that. If anyone has not heard our other shows, SEL is a brainchild of this organization called
Castle.
Castle. Mm-hmm. And the pillars that they use are telling you that you have to be self-aware and self-monitoring and all this. And again, they're starting this in pre-K.
Yeah.
You cannot be self-aware and self-monitoring and all this other garbage in preschool. It's not possible because your brain's not developed to the point where it understands what it means to be self-aware or self whatever, and it goes in and starts to mess with the children's minds to the point if it changes attitudes, values, and beliefs to not mirror what their family or their background is. Let's say, you come from another country and you bring those attitudes and those values and beliefs, and it's training you to divorce yourself from your family's values and beliefs and accept what the school is feeding you. That's a dangerous move against the family. But how many people are talking about it? How many people are understanding that is the goal of the social and emotional learning? It is to manipulate them into what to think, not how to think.
Well, that's correct. And, it's really sad that they're using our children's safety. They're
Mm-hmm.
playing on how afraid parents are to send their kids to school for fear of things like school shootings to put more surveillance into the schools.
Mm-hmm.
This is all about
Mm-hmm.
surveillance. Our kids
It
are
is.
a captive audience for
Mm-hmm.
everything. The ideas the government wants them to have in their heads,
Right.
the degree to which they will be even capable of questioning those ideas. Because if you
Right.
don't read properly, don't do math properly, all that. And now they're using the safety element to just make you embrace even more.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me tell you about CDW. It is a leading multi-brand provider of information technology solutions to businesses, government, education, and healthcare customers in the United States, the United Kingdom, and Canada. It's a Fortune 500 company. That's why they're
That's
interested in.
CDW. That's what they are.
That's who they are. That's why they're publishing an article about holistic school security and mental health.
Look at their sales. Look at
Yeah,
this.
look at that.
This is a huge. Our children
Mm-hmm.
are an absolute cash cow. And why
Yeah.
are they? Why are they? Because the government has confiscated close to $1 trillion, pulled it
Mm-hmm.
right out of the economy every single year across all levels of education, including higher ed. It's close to
Mm-hmm.
$1 trillion all told that they have confiscated from us at the state and federal level combined, to form this big pot of money. So of course these companies are like, I want a piece of that action.
Mm-hmm.
What's the topic of the day? I bet when they have their meetings and all of their, brainstorming sessions of how are we going to make money this year, this is the kind of stuff they talk about. What's trending? What has
Right.
people up in arms? What can we get in on? It's
What can
disgusting.
we exploit? What
These are
can
our
we?
children.
Mm-hmm.
These are their minds. This
Mm-hmm.
is not about putting in better locks on the doors or making sure that, you have a couple of armed guards to protect from crazy people who want to break in and shoot. And if you think about it, it really is kind of that simple. If
Yeah. Yeah.
schools were places that were harder to get physically into the building with weaponry because you had literal guards going like, no, sorry, you cannot come in because children. Um, this would be over. This would be solved. You don't need all this other stuff.
Right. Well, we've looked at state level. We've looked at local level. We've looked at big tech. Now we're going to go look at Congress because Congress is in on this too.
Oh dear, here we
We have
go.
a pair of bills. I call them sisters. This is the Plan for School Safety Act. And plan, of course, is capitalized, which means it's going to stand for something. And what these two bills want to do, this one you show is from the House. There's one from the Senate as well.
So
That's
this
the
one
same.
is this the Senate one? This is the,
Yeah. Hang on just a second.
oh,
Let's
wait.
see here. Hang on just a second. Let's see. Okay, the first two, regional school safety hubs. That's exactly right. So we have the HR 2577. We also have Senate Bill 761. Those, here's a hint. If you ever look at the Congress.gov website, you're going to see summary text that's going to have actions, titles, all those sorts of things. If you go over and look at the last one, it'll tell you related bills. That's where you can find if there's anything that's related to these particular bills.
So that's
Sometimes
here,
they're identical.
this tab at the bottom here. Related bills,
And
Senate 761. And then it
yeah,
says, I don't see a related bill to this one, but in the
right.
House
That's
bill,
independent. Yeah,
if I go to the
yeah. Now,
House bill and I go to related bills, what do I
you
see?
should see
It's not
nothing.
clicking. Oh, it's spinning. There we go.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Related bills
Okay. They're
2577.
not related by title, but they're related in content of wanting to use
Yeah.
the school as a uh, let's see. I wrote it in the archives for a congressional pair of bills on school safety, which is the cover for getting drugs out of schools. Now, here is the irony. They don't want drugs in schools, then why in the name of all that's holy are they increasing the number of staff in schools that can prescribe drugs that could be just as dangerous as the drugs they're trying to say, no, we don't want? And sometimes they might be the drugs that the child is bringing in might be even better than the chemical gunk that the
Are
school
you
is
able to hear that
designing.
vacuum cleaner?
Nope,
Oh, good. Okay.
nope,
Because
nope,
I
nope,
hear
nope.
somebody's vacuuming out there in the hall, and I'm like,
Oh no. But this is what I put in parentheses. It's ironic that the educrats want the students not to bring in drugs, but they'll trip over themselves to have mental health and behavioral health drugs prescribed at abusive levels. And believe me, they are at abusive levels.
yes. And so we've
Okay.
got HR 894 about
Yep.
drugs. And then we can
Mm-hmm.
go over and we've got Senate Bill 329, Keeping Drugs Out of Schools Act.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the first pair is about regional school safety hubs and what those would look like. This last pair is the getting the drugs out. But yeah, we're gonna keep pumping them in through the government. And then
Great.
let's go to the NIH, the National Institute of Health, housed in Department of Health and Human Services, which, by the way, we've said on several shows, Deb, but under the Every Student Succeeds Act, HHS got the biggest power increase so that it could be the foundation for what we are discussing today. So don't lose that fact. All right, but this is from the National Library of Medicine, and it goes on to tell you the state of evidence for use of psychotropic medications in school-aged youth. It goes on to tell you these are commonly prescribed to school-aged youth for management of mental health concerns. This paper describes the current evidence for psychotropic medications in school-aged youth. More specifically, the following sections summarize relevant medication research trials and practice parameters. Oh, oh my goodness. So they've done studies on this and they're using the whole child concept to do this because you'll see it down in the body before you get to the keywords. Within the context of the larger whole child approach to care that relies on the collaboration of providers and services across systems of care to promote optimal child and family health and wellness. This paper concludes with a discussion about supporting the use of medical treatments in schools, including considerations for ensuring effective family school health system collaboration to best meet youth mental health needs. I
Yeah.
thought it
Family
was up
school health system
I thought it
collaboration.
was up to mom and dad and the choice of their doctor.
Oh,
Why does
heavens no, Lynn.
well then I guess I'm too old fashioned,
They'll
huh?
do it wrong.
Well, I'm
Have
gonna
you
tell
not been
you,
paying attention?
Well,
These
I
things
just
have to
remember,
be mandatory because you won't make good choices.
oh, please, I did make good choices when it came my turn to deal with this. I chose, as well as my husband, we were going to handle it under the advice of a private practice doctor. Had nothing to do with school. And we did very well.
No one's even thinking about the stigma attached for the child of having their life laid bare within the four walls of the school.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's going to stay secret for long.
Okay. Let's go to the next one because this one's a barn burner too. This is from the psychiatric services, excuse me. Psychopharmacology disability law and the administration of psychotropic medication in the school setting. Oh, doesn't this sound fun?
Oh
All right,
my God.
this column provides a general overview of the federal law as it relates to psychiatrists who prescribe psychotropic medication that is administered to children in school settings.
Somebody needs an editor.
Ooh, oh my
They
goodness.
want it to be so closely related, they can't even put a space between the words.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. Uh, Specific situations may require further analysis of or consultation with an attorney.
You
Furthermore,
think?
state law may impose additional requirements, although state law generally cannot reduce the protections provided by the federal law. Again, where in the Constitution did it say I needed a federal law for psychotropic medication in school?
Well, here they say, here's the question. Can schools mandate that a child receive psychotropic medication as a requirement for continued enrollment? Can schools refuse to allow children to attend school during medication adjustments, such as dosage changes or medication discontinuation? Under IDEA, publicly funded special education programs cannot mandate that children receive psychotropic medication as a requirement for enrollment. It cannot be denied attendance in appropriate special education settings during times of specific medication adjustments. However, the school may, this is the big however.
Mm-hmm.
However, the school may seek to change the classroom setting to one deemed more appropriate to the special needs of the child. For example, a child with attention to hyperactivity disorder attending a community-based behavioral support class may be recommended for transfer to a more highly structured. Well, what they're not telling you, they give the really outlier example, but what this
Mm-hmm.
language where they get to change the classroom setting is, oh, you're not going to take the meds we recommended. We're going to go stick you in this room by yourself or with two other people who have wildly different mental health problems than you have, to the point where you might be in danger actually from them.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not going to take the medication, we can't, guarantee that you're going to learn anything in this room. And we don't want to upset the other children. So we're going to put your kid over here. So just because it says they can't require you to take the meds, as long as they gave themselves permission to do something else different to your kid as a consequence, that will be used as a punishment
Yep.
for
It
not taking the meds.
absolutely
Don't
will.
think it won't.
It absolutely will. Oh, just fun stuff. Really fun stuff. The last thing that we have is
Oh, is this the charming PDF that we have?
yes, ma'am. It
I grab
certainly
that.
is.
Let me make
Yes. Now
sure I
this,
get that one.
yeah, this one's from 2012, and you're going to say, well, wait a minute, that document's so old. Why do we need to look at that? Because you need to understand that the way the document is set up, it considers school as a community-based uh, service for your child. It absolutely will include that schools are a community care agent for your child. Do we need to repeat that?
Well, and now they're also still, while they got rid of the specific,
Mhm.
Department of Education building, they
So
haven't gotten
this
rid of
is still there.
they
This
haven't
is
gotten rid of the Community Schools Initiative. They
no,
haven't
they
gotten
sure
rid of
haven't.
any of that. So that is
Right.
still in play.
It absolutely is. But
Look
this
at
is a
all the
20.
fancy letters after their names.
Oh, I know. I know.
MD stuff, AACP. Okay.
But just do a general search for school and see how many times it comes up. It may not be once, it might be a few times. It's been a while since I've looked at this one, Deb, but
19,
that,
19 times it
yeah,
appears in this
19
document.
times. Mm-hmm. Wow. What about mental health? How many times does that come up?
Let's see if I search for mental health, I get 34 times.
There you
That
go.
stands to reason. It's a document about psychotropic drugs.
Yeah.
But if I put, community
Mm-hmm.
24 times.
There you go.
So, the point is they are defining our schools as community, what do they call it here? Community child serving agencies. That's a new one. What you thought was a school, a place where
Mm-hmm.
kids went to learn academic subjects,
Nope.
is now a community child serving agency.
Isn't that special?
It's a
And
quasi medical facility, soon to become an actual medical facility through community schools initiatives, where
right.
there'll be zero separation between where your child gets its his or her medical care and where they get their supposed alleged
Mm-hmm.
academic education. And now that
Right.
we have the president of the United States signing an executive order, basically commanding the government to come up with a way to get AI in every K-12 classroom.
Oh, this is a disaster. Yeah, but we're
Welcome to
going to
the
get rid of
Matrix,
those cell
everybody.
phones. We're going to get rid of the cell phones and we're going to replace it with AI.
Yeah,
Yay!
that's so much better. I'm sure that children won't in any way be negatively affected psychologically by being plugged in and training AI all day long with their absolutely limited knowledge of the world.
Oh, wow. Well,
It's terrifying. It's quite
yeah,
terrifying.
it
There's no
is.
ethics being applied to this at all. So,
No,
and they are so good, all of them. This is not a Democrat thing. This is not even a progressive thing. There are people calling themselves conservative who are all in on all of these things. Sarah Huckabee Sanders. What this is, in the simplest terms, is it is a small R Republican. Small R Republicans are the only people fighting this. Big R's, big D's, progressives, everybody else. In other words, people who support the existence of the republic, formerly known as the United States of America, or formerly a republic, where you have individual sovereignty, where the government is limited and restricted in its rights as far as what's it going to do to you, especially in the most private sphere of your life, your raising of your children. That is dead and buried. And somebody today, and in fact, I'm going to find it because I want to read it here, is I think it was Van Harvey on Twitter. He was responding to a video I did on Substack about how
mm-hmm.
compulsory schooling is violating your First, Fourth, and Fifth Amendment rights. And he said, as you said in this video, and as I've said over and over again, when the last state enacted compulsory schooling laws in the early 1900s, we, the people, gave up the principle of all of our individual rights. And until those laws are abolished, our rule of law is but useful theater.
Yep. Bingo.
That is about as spot on as it gets, because
Absolutely.
like, how do you get to documents like this, or Governor Stein's little council, or the HR and Senate bills revolving around drugs and what they're going to do with the schools and the surveillance they're going to, and getting rid of cell phones? How do you get to that level of micromanagement without basically saying individual rights? What are those?
Yeah.
You're compelled into the school. You don't have that anymore.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
theater.
It absolutely is. And you're going to have people who listen to this and they're just going to they'll just dismiss it because there's no relevance to them. They're not going to stop and think, okay, wait a minute, whether I have a child in this system or I don't, I have to pay taxes, and this is what my tax dollars going for. Oh well,
If your
it's
tax dollars
okay.
were going for Soylent Green, and they said, this is your free food for your kids for 13 years, is the Soylent Green that we've decided to use your taxpayer dollars to pay for, would you eat it? Would you eat it? Because, well, I paid for it, so I'm going to eat it. Oh, really? That's what you'd eat. Would you ask for, feeding choice so the government could spend, your money on some different foods of its choice? So this one has Soylent Green, and over here we're going to give you pink slime. Take your pick. You get to choose. We've built a tunnel in the day prison to take you to another side of the day prison that isn't really a prison at all. It was like this private, nice building or whatever. But notice how it's cleaner. There's no graffiti, and it's like all smells nice over there. And it doesn't smell like, you know what? Yeah, you can go through the tunnel. Just, fill out this paperwork in triplicate online with, blood sample and some DNA. And then, your kids can go through the tunnel to the other side of the day prison. How long is that side of the day prison going to stay the nice, clean smelling day prison? after we just opened up a tunnel and had the same people who were in this one fill out some paperwork and go to that one. Because the 14th Amendment says they can't put up arbitrary blocks in the tunnel to change the composition of the people that would use it. They can't do that. That's that kind of civil right they'll observe. Oh yeah. Oh, you'd had rigorous application requirements to get into the private school. You can't have that. You're taking public dollars. We need equal access. You can't. No. That's elitist and snobby and racist and all bad things. You can't. 14th Amendment says you have to get rid of your application process. Wait a minute. Your school's a Christian school? That's discriminating on the basis of, right, you're only hiring Christian teachers. No. You can't do that. You have to hire, a diverse array. It has to be an equal opportunity employer because you're taking public dollars. You don't want to hire the trans, pole dancing teacher. I'm sorry. That's discrimination. I mean, I'm being extreme to prove the point.
Yes.
With the money.
I don't argue.
And with all of the stuff is going to come this too. So this, if you think your nice little private school right now, and you're like, I'm so excited to get my voucher because it's going to defray the cost of the private school I already send my kids to. Well, good luck. This is coming in with it, along with the other stuff.
And the
might not be
social and
day
emotional
one.
learning. Yep.
Might not be day one, but it will be there, right, Lynn?
Yep, it will. And you want to know why? Because back in 1974, the state of North Carolina was used as the test state dummy for this very system. And I have the document. Charlotte Iserbeat sent it to me in the mail before she died, and I have it. And it was absolutely jaw-dropping to see what the federal government was asking the state to do to create this community of child serving agencies. They just didn't call it that then. It's absolutely just come to such a fruition that should never have happened. I mean, someone should have chopped that tree down, but no one has. And I don't know, like you said, until we get rid of these pretend laws and, we rise up, this is not going to change. It's not going to go away. But that's everything I have for you today.
Yeah. The only solution, Lynn, is what, I've said all along, and what you've said is, don't play this game. Don't get in the first place. Don't send your kid to, early childhood school, which are heavily regulated by the government, even the private ones.
Yes.
Do not, do your level best to raise your own children. If you have to work, if you are a single parent, whatever, figure it out. I mean, I don't mean to be mean, but see if you can move closer to extended family. See if you can take a job where you work from home. See if you can find truly private care where, the people and you're willing to pay. Like maybe there's a stay-at-home mom in your community who would take on a couple other kids while you go do your shift and not charge you all that much money. If you send over the food or whatever, I don't know, figure out another way if you value your child's mind. As I published on my Substack this week, the biggest project of your life, the most important project of your life is not this system, is not fixing this system.
Nope.
It is raising your child. It is protecting their mind from the poison, even of being told, you might have a mental illness.
Yeah,
said the state.
Exactly. Well, you also can look at your state law where it concerns homeschooling, because that's what you're talking about is, homeschooling. In the state of North Carolina, you have the honor to, if you need to partner with another family, it could be like you and I, we could set up a partnership where you send me your child, I teach your child and my children, and then vice versa. So that is a legal option for us in the state, but not every state has that. So know what your states say about this is how you get started in homeschooling, or these are the laws, and follow just the law. Everything else is up to you.
Well, and they haven't yet banned you from moving from state to state. And I know that some people might say, well, easy for you to say, I can't just pick up and move. I understand. I know this is not, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's also not complicated. It's not complicated. And if you have children, you really have to weigh the trade-offs. And what I'm trying to get across to people is that the trade-offs of sending your kid to public school are
Mhm.
enormous and growing by the day.
Mhm.
It's not a minor inconvenience. It's not a nuisance. It's not a like, well, I guess I'll have to pay closer attention to what's going on in their Chromebook or whatever. This is way bigger than you can possibly imagine. And once you're in the
Mhm.
system, once you've even registered your child, literally, if you go and fill out but I learned this the hard way. You fill it out, even you think it'll be temporary. You think I just need this as a stopgap because I'm going through some stuff at home personally. That was me. That was it. The second I filled out that registration stuff, thinking was just going to get me through my separation while I tried to find a job, etc., state all but owned my kids. That became the status quo. It didn't matter that for the previous 5 years they were homeschooled. It didn't matter that they were testing off the charts. None of it mattered. All that mattered was now that they were in their clutches, that was day one of their
Mhm.
lives. That was status quo. And any attempt to pull them out, especially in a divorce situation where I didn't have 100% agreement, the state decides for the state,
Wow.
and it always will. And so I would say to people, if you have even the smallest doubts,
Mhm.
don't register your kids and don't send them. And, you might want to keep it on for later, but I am telling you, elementary school is the most important. Those are the most important years. Don't think like, well, I'll send them for elementary and then no, no, they won't learn to read. They won't learn math. They won't learn this. And they're going to have this data that is going to make it harder for you to ever pull them out.
Yeah. Yep.
Anyway, I'm sorry. I
Absolutely.
get very passionate about this stuff because I've seen firsthand the damage that it
Oh,
does.
right. Absolutely.
It tears
Absolutely. And
families
I've
apart.
right. And I've been around long enough to see all the different consequences that happen from those who homeschool, those who don't. And sometimes the differences are very noticeable, sometimes not so much. But the point of it is yeah, we gave up a lot to homeschool.
Mhm.
23 years, I did not have an outside job. I did have here and there a part-time job, but I always took my children with me. But the point of it was we gave up a lot. We don't have the fanciest house. We don't have the newest car. I don't wear the fanciest clothes to this day, even though I've been retired from homeschooling for 10 years. It
Yeah,
doesn't matter. We've kept that lifestyle because we're so used to it.
that's
We
right.
were able to do things with those sacrifices that helped them get the best education that they possibly could because it didn't matter to us whether they went to college or they went straight to work as long as they had that firm foundation that was based on our attitudes, values, and beliefs, that's what mattered. And they are successful in different ways. And that's what is so wonderful is that you can see success is not one definition. Thriving is not one definition, especially when you have mental health enter the picture. It is absolutely worth the struggles, the headaches, because you know what? They're your children. I can't protect your children. I can protect mine.
That's
And
right.
that's the way it's supposed to be.
And what a perfect note to leave it on. Lynn, as always, this is amazing work, amazing research. Thank you so much for sharing it
You're
with us.
welcome.
Everyone, please check the description box below. All the links that we looked at today are there. Please read them in detail, double check our homework. That's fine. But
Yeah,
we bring this to your attention because we know that you're probably not out there doing what Lynn does and digging around for it. So, but do pay attention. These are your kids, and it's not the schools that you went to, and even the schools you went to were not the schools your parents went to. And this has been evolving towards a more oppressive system for decades. But it was originally set up that way.
yeah,
So just so you
absolutely.
know, it's not going backwards. There is not going to be incremental freedom. It doesn't work like the government doesn't divest itself of power.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. Thank you,
anyway,
Deb.
all right. Thanks everybody. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Check out my Substack at thereasonwelearn.substack.com. Check out Lynn's site, commoncorediva.com, and follow us both on Twitter. You're at CommonCore Diva. I'm at
Mhm.
owl_ELC. And we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot, everybody.